All right, and we have Matt Shepard, the voice of Michigan Hoops on the Michigan IMG Sports Network here on Sayf At The Plate. Matt, how are you?
Good. How are you doing, Clayton?
Pretty good. Michigan went into that Iowa game Saturday feeling like it was almost a must-win situation. What happened, and why couldn't they pull out the W there?
Well, you got to be able to shoot the basketball. Michigan's known for a good shooting team, and you look at their record when they haven't shot the ball well. It doesn't fare well. Anytime they've shot under 40%, I think they're now 1-8. You got to be able to make buckets, and they had open looks. They couldn't hit them. They missed 4 layups. They missed some free throws that they should have made. They fell asleep a little bit defensively at times, and when you do that, especially against a really good team that already causes some matchup issues, and you're at a slight disadvantage to begin with, it doesn't matter if you're at home, if you're on the road, and it doesn't matter what you're playing for. You got to understand the other team was pretty hungry too. Iowa was playing for a 4 seed, and they got it, and they earned it.
Michigan went 1-4 to end the season. That loss Saturday to Iowa capping the end of the regular season. What went into the late season collapse? I know the schedule stuff, they weren't making shots, but what else, was there?
Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. I mean, when you're looking for a guy who can make clutch shots, I don't care if the shot clock is winding down, the game clock is winding down, your coach has called a timeout, you feel the need to get all on the same page. You need a guy who is used to those situations. Michigan just doesn't have a guy like that. And the guys that come close to being in those situations in the past are not historically very good shooters. Zach Irvin is one of your leaders, but he's a career 40% shooter. You've got to have guys who can make shots down the stretch, get guys in the right spots down the stretch. Michigan just didn't have that. Sure, they played at Ohio State, and it was a tough turnaround because it was their 3rd game in 7 days, but Ohio State's not as good as Michigan. The Wolverines had an opportunity there to, have that game in their back pocket and not have to worry about the last game of the year. It would have been another top 50 win for them. They couldn't get it. They had Wisconsin after playing a very good first half, and they had too many lulls in the second half, too many lulls overall this season against teams that they were right there with. I mean, they were at Purdue, and they were within 1 with about 5 minutes to go, and they couldn't close the deal. They were at Iowa, and after being down an 11-0 hole, they responded in a 13-0 spurt and actually led 52-51 with about 12 minutes to go. They couldn't close that deal. There's just too many missed opportunities for this team and too many dry spells for them all season long.
Kind of a bizarre senior day on Saturday. Both Karis LeVert and Spike Albrecht not playing, both out for the year with injuries. Despite that they couldn't play this year, what have they meant over the past 4 years to the Michigan basketball program?
Well, you're talking about 2 guys who were part of a senior class that had 95 wins, 2 guys who helped as freshmen reach the Final Four and made impacts, 2 guys as sophomores made the Elite 8. Karis LeVert was a preseason All-Big Ten, but also a preseason All-American. It went healthy as a first-round NBA draft pick. Spike Albrecht, we talked earlier in the conversation about not having the ability to make big shots, hit big free throws. Spike Albrecht is that guy. He puts guys in the right spot offensively and defensively. He communicates exceptionally well. He takes over huddles. He makes key shots. He makes key free throws. Those are all the things that Michigan has lacked this year that those 2 guys brought to the proverbial table. I'm not making any excuses and saying that was the difference and things would have been totally different, but anybody who loses that type of production and leadership is going to suffer a setback, and that's what happened with Michigan. Those 2 guys mean an awful lot to the program because of the way they carried themselves, because of how clutch they were, the types of leaders that they were. Really difficult, though, Clayton, to lead when you're dressed in street clothes every single day and not practicing.
Exactly. And what do you think it would have been like if the full group of the 2012 recruiting class would have stayed, would have been healthy? Obviously, there were some complications, different scenarios for everybody, but that class included NBA players Nick Stauskas, Mitch McGary, Glenn Robinson III. What would that have been like?
Well, come on. I mean, Nick Stauskas, yeah. I mean, you're talking about a national championship contending team is what you're talking about. That's not reality, though. There's no sense in going back and thinking, what would have happened if this, because that's just not the way the college landscape is anymore. I mean, guys are leaving early all the time. Who knows how it's going to affect Duke, North Carolina, Michigan State if Deontay Davis leaves. You have to be able to rebuild on the fly in today's college basketball landscape, really in college sports in general. So I don't know if Michigan or Michigan fans should be looking back and stressing too much about what it would have been like if those guys would have stayed. Those guys didn't stay, and you can't blame them for leaving. Nick Stauskas was a first-team All-American and Big Ten Player of the Year. Could you have imagined if he'd have stayed and gotten hurt? I mean, could he have really enhanced his draft stock more than it was? Same thing with Trey Burke as the National Player of the Year. Could you blame him for leaving? Absolutely not. So I don't try not to dwell on that too much. I just think Michigan needed to seize the opportunity of having a national championship, then making an Elite Eight, and bringing in guys who would help replenish. There were some things that didn't go John Beilein's way. I mean, they had a guy by the name of Tyus Battle. He committed to them. They begged off of Josh Langford. Battle decommits, goes to Syracuse. Within that time, Langford ends up going to Michigan State. That hurt Michigan. There's plenty of opportunities where Michigan had guys they could have they thought they would have had certain guys at certain positions, but certain guys chose not to go because they thought Stauskas would come back, or they thought they'd be stuck behind a guy like Glenn Robinson, stuck behind a Trey Burke. It's kind of a residual effect. It's life in college basketball. It just affected Michigan heavily the last 2 years.
Michigan this year on the bubble for the NCAA tournament. What do you see from the matchup with Northwestern Thursday at the Big Ten tournament? The potential matchup with Indiana Friday.
Well, I don't think they're on the bubble. I really don't. I don't think they're in right now. I think they have to win the Big Ten tournament to get in, quite honestly. I suppose if they beat Northwestern and then were to upset Indiana, that would strike a chord in the NCAA tournament committee's mind and think, yeah, they deserve to be in. You could make that case. After all, Indiana's a top 25 team. They are the Big Ten outright champions. They're playing basically in their own backyard by playing at Conseco Fieldhouse. But as far as Northwestern is concerned, look, Northwestern gave Michigan everything they could handle, and then so the Chrysler Center. Don't look at the final score. Alex Ola is a difficult matchup for Michigan. They've got a point guard who's a really strong player. They've got certain wing players that give Michigan some issues, and they run a system that Michigan really struggles with because they don't see a whole lot of it. So I know Chris Collins is really excited about the matchup. Let's hope Michigan equals that.
You speak about the Big Ten tournament. What does Michigan need to do to make the run? What button does John Beilein need to push? Whether it's a guy off the bench, Aubrey Dawkins, or what's that one thing that you envision happening if they were to make the run?
Yeah, I don't think there's any magical potion here. I don't think there's any button to be pushed. Players just got to play better. I mean, guys got to make shots. It's as simple as that. I mean, they had open looks against Iowa. They had open looks against Wisconsin. You can't expect anything more out of that. You're not going to get layups every single trip down the floor when you're running offense. Guys have to get the inbounds quicker. Guys have to hit their open shots. Guys have to get back in transition defense. Look, I sit through those film sessions with Michigan every single week. I hear what they're stressing. Players have to, and I'm not, saying that it's all on the players, but players must implement the game plan. They've got to do what they're told, and things might turn out a little differently. I mean, I suppose you can make the case any time a team plays, if they make shots, they're going to win. Granted, Michigan gets a lot of really good looks. I don't think there's any one special button you have to push. Their best players, Derek Walton, Zach Irvin, Duncan Robinson, have to play better. Duncan Robinson, at one point, was leading the country in three-point shooting. Now he's right around 40th. In the Big Ten, he's shooting about 30% from three. Why is that? He's got to find ways to get open, and when he does get open, he's got to take the shot, whether he makes it or not. There's too many times where he's chosen to pass up the shot instead of take ones that he was making earlier in the year.
We're talking here with Matt Shepard, the voice of Michigan basketball on the Michigan IMG Sports Network. Going forward, what do you see from the talent on the roster they have going into next year and the guys coming in? Is it enough to get them back to where they were 3, 4 years ago, winning Big Ten championships and competing in March?
Well, that's a really good question because I don't think anybody can answer that question, because you would have thought with Derek Walton coming back, Zach Irvin coming back, Duncan Robinson making an impact, with guys like Aubrey Dawkins, Muhammad Ali Abdur-Rahman, Mark Donnell, Ricky Doyle, all played significant time and games a year ago. You would have thought that would have been a huge beneficiary to what Michigan wanted to do this year. Instead, look at where they're at right now. So you can sit there and talk about having the same starting five back, Walton, Rahman, Irvin, Robinson, Donnell, but how well did that work out for you in the Big Ten this year? And I know there's some really good teams, but I don't think anything is foregone. There's no given. I can tell you that the freshman coming in, Xavier Simpson out of Lima, Ohio, will play a lot next year and deserves to play a lot if he's earned it in training camp. But I heard everything about him. It has been nothing but positive regarding his leadership and his ability. I know there's an Austin Davis out of Onstead, Michigan coming in, and the other night he had 40 plus and 25 in a playoff game at the Class B level. John Teschke's coming in, and he's a 7-foot rim protector. And then they've got Ibby Watson, who's going to have to play and be a significant role player coming off the bench or maybe even starting, who knows, at the small forward spot. So it's too difficult to project what this is going to do. Remember this. I mean, at the beginning of the year, everybody predicted Iowa to be number 9 in the Big Ten. And at one point, they were ranked 3rd. So I don't know if anybody can really say what they expect or what they're going to get out of Michigan or any team next year yet.
You also do some work covering the Tigers for Fox Sports Detroit. Switching gears here for a moment, what do Tigers fans here have to look forward to this coming season? What have they shown in spring training thus far?
Well, it's really early. I mean, they've only played 7 games at the time we're speaking. They're playing this afternoon against the Mets. J.D. Martinez hit a homer yesterday. I think their offense is going to be fine. I really do. And I love the type of lineup that Brad Ausmus can throw out there every single day. Don't worry too much about their defense. Hopefully Anthony Gose has grown a little bit from center field last year, but I like the corner outfields. I like the defense up the middle. I like the bench as well. I've heard talking to people down there that Nick Castellanos has improved his defensive ability at third, and we all know that was a little bit of a weakness last year. I like the bullpen additions. I really do. I like Justin Wilson a lot. I like Mark Lowe. Francisco Rodriguez is lights out, and I don't worry about that. The starting pitching is the only thing that concerns me. I wasn't a huge believer that Mike Pelfrey was worth the 2-year, $8 million contract, but he pitched well in his debut, and he's pitching today. My biggest concern is Anibal Sanchez and the ability to stay healthy. Jordan Zimmerman, a solid pickup in the off season. Let's hope Justin Verlander picks up where he left off. But Sanchez, when's the last time he had a full season or didn't have some type of bumps and bruises, nicks and pains that forced him to miss a start or two? So that's my biggest concern right now is their starting pitching, believe it or not.
All right, Matt Shepard, voice of Michigan basketball, does some covering for the Detroit Tigers as well. We'll look forward to hearing you call in the Big Ten tournament. I'll actually be down there as well, so hopefully we can cross paths as well.
All right, sounds great. Thanks.